Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to have an exciting conversation about solo travel. And I have my esteemed panelists that I will introduce in a bit. And just really wanted you to understand that the purpose of this is that if you have thought about traveling and you are waiting on friends or whatever, and you just haven't because of that, or you're worried about safety and that type of thing, we're going to talk about that. But I just wanted to talk about how traveling changed my whole life. Like I didn't travel that much, probably 6 or 7 years ago. And then because of saying yes to travel, I've gotten so many experiences, met so many people, and then of course moved out of the country. So for the most part, most of us live out of the country, but it started with travel. So I want to introduce my guest. We're starting with NikkiFaye. If you can tell us where you're from and where you currently reside.
I am from Atlanta, Georgia, and currently I live in Nairobi, Kenya.
Perfect. And Phelena.
I'm originally from South Central Los Angeles. I'm a 5-time expat, and I currently live in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Perfect. And Shar.
Hey everyone, Shar here, originally from Detroit, Michigan, and I currently live in Lisbon, Portugal.
And I'm Unique.
I am from Dallas, Texas, and I'm currently living in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, jumping from Tulum to Playa. I've been here for 6 months.
Perfect. And Margo's going to jump on with us a little bit later. So, hey, folks, thanks for jumping on live. We appreciate you. So let's talk about your first travel experience, your first solo travel experience. NikkiFaye, start us off. Where'd you go?
The first place I went solo was London, England. It wasn't like I'm planning a solo trip. I was studying abroad. So I just, had to get on a plane and go. And it was like I had been traveling as a kid with my parents, but that kind of, rejuvenated my passion and love for travel. So that during that trip, when I was studying abroad, I visited probably 3 or 4 other countries, met people, met a guy, started dating a guy abroad. It was great. So I was like, you know what? This is my kind of steez. I got to keep this up. So, so that was my first experience. And from then on out, I was like, okay, this is what I do. And so I just.
Perfect. Phelena, what about your first solo travel experience?
It was probably maybe about 16 or 17 years ago. It was a study abroad program, actually. And, honestly, I was like the only fly in the buttermilk. And I was like, I'm not doing this solo travel with these white kids in Jamaica and Belize and Guatemala. So I left the study abroad program and curated my own. And so that was my entree. I was about 21. That was my entree into solo travel.
Nice. And Margo's here joining us. Margo, where are you from and where are you currently residing? Wait, Margo, we can't hear you, honey. Let me see. Do I have you mute or you have mute?
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, Sin. My name is Margo Gabriel. I'm a freelance writer. I'm originally from Miami, Florida, but grew up in Boston. And so I came to Portugal a little over 4 years ago on vacation and decided I want to move back. And so I got here in October. So I've been here through the pandemic.
And what was your first solo trip experience?
My first solo trip? Oh boy. I guess I'll say New York.
Mm-hmm.
New York was definitely in my 20s. I was always going there for concerts and shows and art events. So I'd say New York was my first solo travel. And then my first international solo travel would have been Dominican Republic in 2011.
Yeah.
That was my first, yeah.
Awesome. And Shar, tell us your first solo travel experience.
My first solo travel experience was to Cambodia for my 29th birthday. So it was a really awesome experience. And I had done layovers by myself, so I'm not counting those, but I'm counting a real proper someone joining me or meeting me there. And it was amazing. It was the most relaxing, rejuvenating experience. And so that's what started the solo travel goal.
And I'm Unique. What was your first solo travel experience?
Bali, Indonesia. So I was one of the people that like was waiting for a friend my entire 20s. I was waiting for someone to come travel with me for 6 months, 7 months, and it just never happened. So I was 28 and I decided that, for one, I wanted to get away from this stalker guy, but I wanted to go ahead and move halfway across the earth because I had a friend that was living there. And the day that I showed up, she was like, oh, I have to leave. I have an emergency. So I planned on going with a friend, and then she left the next day, and it was a beautiful experience. I thought it would be a lot scarier than what it was, but I adapted within 3 days once I learned how to ride a motorcycle, and I was good to go. It was a really good experience.
So when you plan solo trips, what are some of the things that you all look for to make sure, or to set the trip up? I mean, if it's something that you've done for the first time, I think people don't even know where to begin in regards. Who has some insight on that?
Well, I always start with housing, your accommodations, right? So for me, because I love to explore by foot where I can, I try to, I'm hearing some echoing. I don't know if
Yeah, I'm getting feedback from someone.
Still, I'm getting feedback.
I hope it's not mine. Is it okay, but yeah, like the housing. And so I try to pick a place, like I don't try to skimp on like, oh, let me save a couple bucks and be somewhere hella unsafe. So I always say like pick somewhere that is centrally located to the things you actually want to do and see and type of activities you want to do, especially if you're traveling by foot or using public transit. And so that's like my number one thing is like, where am I going to stay? Do I feel safe? And if I got to pay 50 or 10, whatever extra bucks a month, you know, for my, a day for my safety, then so be it, but I'll be safe and comfortable. Yeah.
Anybody else?
I would say for me, similar to Shar, like safety is super key for me since I'm always traveling solo. So just studying like the lay of the land, like understanding, you know, where things are before I arrive, as opposed to like doing all that once I, you know, am on the ground.
And you make a good point there because, and I see this often when I go to the airport, you see tourists look like they don't know where they're going. And so they're sitting there with their phone and just out here. That is just not the move you want to make, whether you are traveling solo or not, because understand that there are people that are waiting on the airport, waiting for tourists, waiting for opportunity. And when you sit there looking lost, kind of figure that out before you get there. Do the research to find out, are car services allowed at the airport, or do you have to walk away from the airport? The process of getting to the hotel or getting to the Airbnb. Know that before you land in whether it be the country or whatever state and city you go into, because if you out here looking like you should be got, that's exactly what will happen. Let me bring Phelena back. There we go. Anybody else have any insight on how you pick? I think I typically start off at Airbnb, and then I use Booking if I want to filter things through price-wise. But usually those are kind of the places that I start. And when it's time for me to solo travel, I think the first solo travel experience I did was Costa Rica. And that was just life-changing. It was just super laid back. It was beautiful. It was relaxing. And people were just super kind. And I think from then I would go back like every other month for like 2 years. And then I decided to kind of branch out there. But what you'll realize is that you just learn to be flexible, move with the flow. And then it's just like, once you get that first one out the way, it's easy after that. Anybody have any more insight?
So this is something I started doing after COVID. So post-COVID, I would go on Bumble BFF, or I would go on regular Bumble, and I would set my location to that place. And I would just ask the locals questions. And I would like, what are your restrictions? What time does, do you have a curfew? Do you plan on going back into like all of that? And then I'll see if the guys are cute too, so I don't waste my time there since I'm single. And that's my easiest way to get the insight. I'll just ask. And then like some of the guys would get annoyed, but they think I'm coming. So, win-win if I show up.
And I didn't want to use any dating apps. I felt Tinder was great when I'm traveling there, but now that I live here, Tinder is a bit creepy.
Wait a minute. So, great tip. I used to actually set up my Tinder too. And like, hey, like, who's here? Who am I going to hang out with? Whatever. And Tinder for me was, I mean, it could be creepy, just like the bar can be creepy. Like, you know, you go to the bar, you meet a creepy guy. You go to the bar, you meet a great guy. You know, I think it's the same. It mimics real life. I think most people know I met my life partner on Tinder, so you know.
On Tinder, yes.
Okay. I'm a real advocate of Tinder.
My last boyfriend.
My friends have done the same, so
yeah,
it works, you know. So I think you have to try whatever avenues are out there and see what happens, you know. But I definitely, you know, recommend Tinder. But as far as like setting myself up for safety, I have to say I've never considered safety when I travel. When I was traveling solo in that way, when I was in the States, I would only book cheap tickets. So, you know, those deals, I don't know if you guys are in travel groups, those deals come out, I book it. Like everything else comes later. So I never really considered safety. But what I do, as you were saying, Cinnamon, is set everything up. Once you get to the airport, you already have your ride set, you know where you're going. You know, I try to meet a few people on the ground before I get there, you know, expats generally, even though I wasn't an expat at the time. But I try to make sure I know people, you know, get tips on where to go, what to do, what not to do. Those kinds of things for lifesavers.
I love it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up using the Facebook groups. I found them to be very helpful. The Untitled Chapter was the one when I first went solo to the continent, to Africa, and they hooked me up. I mean, I had a driver, I had places to go, pretty much everything I needed by recommendation of the people there, and even had a chance to meet up with them. So it made my solo experience not so solo. So that's another resource to reference and use.
No Madness is clutch.
We said what now?
No Madness is really clutch. At least it's speaking for me too.
And so, Phelena, what do you do to meet people? Or do you meet people when you solo travel?
I think it probably happens organically.
Yeah.
I don't use no dating apps. I think all of them creepy, no offense. Yeah, most of the time it happens organically. And I know, you know, I've been an expat for over a decade, and it's a very transient experience. So I know people all over the world, and I tend to go places kind of where I might have a community. Otherwise, I mean, I just, you know, might meet people at a bar, you might meet them at a hotel, you might meet them at a museum. It just happens organically. I honestly don't do a lot of due diligence.
I agree with that, because I know with moving abroad, a lot of people will ask me the question, you know, how do you meet people? And I'm an introvert, and so most of the time I don't really want to meet people that much. But the ones that I have met, yeah, it's happened. I mean, that's how I met Margo and Shar. It's been super organic. It's not like I, you know, did major fillers. And I think you can kind of take that same intuition and energy when you're traveling by yourself.
That part is really important, the intuition. Yeah, that's clutch.
Yeah, it's been plenty of times where that has probably saved my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think your intuition becomes heightened as a solo traveler, or at least it should. It should, at least.
And that part, how do you think traveling solo has kind of changed your perspective on life?
I find the world is actually a very friendly place, contrary to, you know, what news propaganda would have you to believe. I can't say that I've really been in situations where I felt like I was in imminent danger. And if I did, you know, your spidey sensibilities go off and you pivot, right? But I think that's the biggest lesson that I learned, that people are nice. Yeah, the world has received me quite well. I haven't had many bad experiences.
Yeah, I echo those sentiments. The world is much nicer. I've been treated very well by complete strangers, and it just encouraged me to travel solo even more. And I'll also say it builds confidence, because when you start to learn how to navigate your way through these foreign spaces on your own and meet people, I actually meet more people traveling solo than I do when I'm with a group or with friends. So it's just confidence building, I think, even the entire abroad experience, but really, really. And I love the liberty at which I can enjoy the experience without any influence from anyone else's like energies or anything else, and I can do exactly what I want.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Phelena and with Shar, because just, not being able to travel solo and just traveling with groups, like you do have a different perspective, like having gone to Haiti and South Africa and different countries on the continent. You have more confidence once those experiences are over and you have those memories as souvenirs. So I always encourage people to travel solo if they can, even if it's for 10 days or a week, because you never know what you're going to learn about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think I learned the truth about places and countries because you see so much stuff on the media, and it's just like this isn't real life. Like, being honest, even my view of the US has shifted a bit because I was like, wait, I thought when I got to the US, the white people were gonna be attacking me, it was gonna be a problem. And they were going out of their way to be nice to me. And I was like, wait, what? So y'all don't hate us here? So I know there are those elements, and I live in South Carolina. So there are those elements, but it wasn't as bad as they portray it in the media. And so a lot of different countries I've been to, specifically African countries, where all you hear about is poverty and death and, hunger and these things. And you get here and you see all these wealthy people. You're like, wait, where were y'all on the news? I didn't see anything about these, African billionaires and millionaires, and they're living like I always call people in Africa rich. There are Americans who are rich, but Africans are rich. And so those are the things we don't hear about. And so that's what I enjoy about the travel experiences, learning. And I think you get those experiences by meeting people when you're traveling, because now you can hear the stories from them directly as opposed to what you've heard or seen in the media and the news.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
I think also your status, especially as an African American, your status is automatically venerated. And I think that's it's maybe not something that Black people specifically consider, but there's a lot of cachet that comes with being an African American overseas, especially if you're a Black woman, because we're the most educated segment of the population in the divided states, and the job opportunities, the dating opportunities are far more robust. And so I think I was able to operate outside of a very limited framework as a result of traveling solo. But I've gotten tremendous opportunities professionally, business-wise, dating-wise, all of those kinds of things. It's just a result of doing it by myself.
I love it. All right. So folks, if you have any questions for our panel, feel free to go ahead and chat those in. Hey, Rochelle, Jen, nice to see you all. Let's see. Do we have any? Hey, ladies, hey, Portugal. Okay. Things are going so fast. Welcome, Pam. Pam's coming to Portugal. Got a lot of people coming to Portugal. Hey there, Lynn, Russia. Okay. She said, I'm tired of waiting for your friends. You're going to do a solo trip out this year. Guadalajara. Anyone have any feedback for that location? Anyone been there? Guadalajara? I haven't been there. No. Great point. Okay. Let's see. Any questions? Go ahead and type in. I'm starting from when I was in my 20s. Okay, so you guys have to have any questions? Shar is right. Let's put this one up there. Shar is right. Other people's energy baggage can sometimes ruin your own experience. That is definitely true. I learned that when I brought a friend to Mexico. Yeah, you really have to be careful who you travel with, because especially if they're just used to kind of living in their own bubble, because sometimes whether it be going out the country or going out the state, it just might not be a good experience. And when you're by yourself, if you don't feel like getting up and going sightseeing, you don't have to. You can just have your own energy and really get to learn about you. And I think that's a super important thing to do when you're just running and going and never taking the time to just sit back and relax and just,
Yeah, and I wanted to say just some advice for anyone who is nervous about even thinking about going abroad. You can kind of ease your way into it. I know on some of my trips, I did Cambodia was first, but my sister was going to be joining me in Singapore, which was my second stop. So the entire journey wasn't solo. It just started off with that country solo, and then my sister was joining me on the second country I was going to after that solo experience. so deep down, I was like, I have nothing to lose because regardless of what happens, I know at some point my sister's joining me. So just think about maybe you do the first 2 days by yourself and then the last 3 days someone join you or vice versa, whatever. But I think it's worth the try. I think solo travel is for more people than they think it is, so don't be too afraid.
Yeah,
I think you're solo traveling, you're actually going to meet people, not necessarily just to be hanging out by yourself. And for me, I know a lot of people don't do this, but for me, I couch surfed, I did hostels. And if you don't stay at the hostels, you can do the events with the hostel. That way, you'll meet other people who are also solo traveling. So again, you're not alone.
Yeah. So there's a question about dating in Portugal. I kind of think this is like dating where in a variety of different countries. Portugal specifically, most of you guys know, I met my first boyfriend off a Tinder in Portugal. We were together for a while, fell madly in love, and we broke up. But I've gotten on Tinder lately, and I immediately got off because it just got much more weird. It's got weirder than it was last time I got on. So someone told me to try Bumble. I might try that. But dating, I mean, it just really just depends on what you into. A lot of it, like what type of guys you like, and so it's what's your thoughts on Portugal and just dating internationally? Period. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
Well, I know places like London. I thought it was many options. I love dating in London. I thought it was like a kid in a candy store coming from America, where I felt like only one type of guy would approach me. I felt like he had a lot of options, and the caliber of the guys that I met was stronger, like definitely higher caliber. So, and I used dating apps when I was in London. I haven't used dating apps abroad, but I have, while solo traveling, gone on dates abroad, just organically meeting people in markets and just going out to get coffee or to get dinner. It's been fun. Like, I never thought I would do that, but when you meet someone, it's an energy thing. And if you think it's like, oh yeah, I feel kind of safe, so you're open. I think it's nothing to lose, right? So I definitely though like Google the person when they put their credit card down to pay, so I can just make sure I wasn't a serial killer. So that's just certain small things you might want to do. But yeah, I think it's good to date abroad, and I think you have more options. So just be open.
Perfect.
I actually enjoy dating abroad because I feel very exotic in these other countries. There's not a lot of people that look like me in most of the countries that I'm going to. I'm exotic in general in America, but you know how that whole situation is. But I enjoy it. I also, 9 out of 10 times, I really, like once I meet the guy, I won't be extremely attracted to him in person. So I'll friend zone him. And then I can just build my friend group from that, or I can just go out with him and his buddies and pick and choose and build friends from there. Most of the time, they're not. But it's nice. It's nice to just go out and explore with them or have someone as a friend. And they're perfectly fine with being friend zoned because they're solo traveling as well.
Perfect. Anybody else have any insight on dating internationally? Okay, so we have, folks, if you have a question, just put it in the box, but typing that you have a question is it's a little bit of wasted space. Just go ahead and tell me what your question is, and we'll go ahead and ask. All right, so divided states, this is going back. Is Portugal open? Guys, if you have any questions about Portugal, go to the government website to find out when it's going to be open. Understand that by the time that you see this later on, we could say yes, and Portugal can close back down. Okay, so I know we have a very helpful community that attempts to answer questions, but it depends on what country you come from, if they're allowing you in, and if it's going to close or open. So go to the government websites of Portugal, type in Portugal Embassy and COVID, and then you can find more COVID updates. Just Google it, folks, because if you decide to come out of the country, you're going to have to be okay with researching a little bit. All right, so nothing is open far as I know, far as U.S. citizens at the moment. You can't come here yet, far as I know. But yeah, anyone else from Portugal, if you got any insight on that, I don't know. One of the questions, hey, Makeda, she's asking, how do you start? Like, where do you even begin as it relates to solo travel? So you came in a little late. We've talked about starting with the location as to where you're going to go and where you're going to stay. So a lot of us use Airbnb or Booking or those type of apps, but just start.
Buy a ticket. Buy the ticket. That's where you start.
Yeah, it's really
It's that
It's not
simple.
that
It's
difficult.
not
Yeah.
complicated. Just buy the ticket.
Let's have the residency cards. Okay. Has any of the ladies had challenges with traveling during COVID?
That's down.
Have,
I ain't gone there.
you ain't going nowhere. I've traveled a lot during COVID. You just issues the same thing that you just have to be an informed traveler. Gone are the days where you could just buy a ticket and show up at the airport. You need to find out, like I said earlier, Google what is required of you as the citizen, your current nationality, and the country in which you're going to, because every country has different parameters and paperwork. I had to go in through France, and so France required me, as well as Portugal, as well as the US. So you have to just, take the time to figure out what's required of you, whether it be a vaccination or a COVID test. You got to go online and figure that out, folks. And don't go on social media guessing, because if you go to the airport and they wrong, what you going to do? So Rochelle asks Shar, why Cambodia?
Oh, I was just really fascinated with the history there. I'm really into history and I nerd out. That's why I like going solo, because no one else wants to go on all these historic sites with me. So, and markets and museums. So it was just an easy sale for me. And it was also close to Cambodia, where me and not Cambodia, Singapore, where me and my sister were going, in Bali. So once you're in Southeast Asia, you can hop around pretty cheap, affordable. So yeah, it was a good, nice central location. And went via Thailand as well. So,
and also in regards to where to start, figure out where your budget is. You know what I mean? If you know you only want to spend a certain amount of money, and don't think you have to go international, just figure how much you want to spend and use that Google Flights Explore option. Go to Google Flights and hit Explore. See who had some cheaper tickets and just get the ticket and, find the location. But you don't have to make it as detailed. Just make that leap. And then once you do it once, look, it's all that. So Jenna asked a question about eating alone. My introvert self doesn't really like being in restaurants alone. Patio's okay, but inside I still tend to feel awkward. What do you guys think about that?
Uber Eats, get over your fear.
But you can you're invite them to dinner. Hey, you want to come to dinner? Go to those hostel events. Hey guys, are you guys going out to dinner? Join them. So that's how you do it. You go with other people.
If you really don't like eating by yourself, try to find a WhatsApp group just for women or just for expats or whatever it is, and just throw in there, be like, hey, does anyone want to go have sushi tonight? Or does anyone want to go to the beach and grab a poke bowl and see if you can find someone? If not, Uber Eats.
I just sit at the bar. I usually no matter what country you're in. I used to have an issue with eating by myself because I would see people eat by themselves and I thought they looked sad and didn't have friends. And then I was like, that's what I used to, because I ain't know better. I ain't know better. And so I would go eat at the bar. And when you eat at the bar, usually other people are there by themselves, you start conversations, or people will, see you and invite you over. But, just be safe. But yeah, I eat at the bar. That's how I do it now, if that helps. Rarely do I get a whole table by myself. So I understand. And also, if you're worried about, and this just reminded me, some of the things I do in regards to safety measures, and if I'm, trying to save money, I usually I don't hang out late at night when I'm traveling solo. I don't really hang out late at night normally, but I usually will go to lunch out, but eat in. So I'll go to lunch and I'll end up saving money because usually it's the same thing that they have for dinner. It's just more expensive. And I will get the other half and take it to my Airbnb or whatever. And I end up having that for dinner. And I'm usually in, but at nighttime, I'm not out in the streets, but people want to do it cool. I'm not really that type of person, even when I'm home.
Oh yeah, another tip is to check out Facebook events. You can put in a location and see what events are going on. So when I went to Oslo, Norway, they were having a salsa night. Now, mind you, I don't salsa and I wasn't going to, but I just wanted to people watch. And I went and I met people. Organically met people just going to that event because people were open and friendly. So I think there's a lot of resources online that people don't take advantage of. And you go to Facebook and you put in the location and you can see nearby events. So that's another way to meet people also.
Right.
I think Internations is another good resource.
What was that?
Internations.
Okay.
It's an expat community. It's like, I don't know, there's hundreds of cities all over the world and there's different chapters. There's a free membership fee. There's a free membership, and then there's like a nominal membership fee for annual membership. But it's worth it. They have all kind of different groups. It's not exclusively Black. It's also a great way to date. It's not a dating app, but it's a great way to actually date people. But they have different communities, sailboating communities, I don't know, quilting communities, salsa dancing, whatever your zhuzh is, they got it on there. So that's a great resource, Internations.
Perfect. Internation. So Stephanie says, should you have events planned in your destination? I'm not very touristy. I want to visit local. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
So to get insights to like local things, I would say those Facebook groups and find people who live there. And shameless plug, but we have an app for communities. There's Internations. There's an app called the Expat app that I created for the Black expat community. So if you want to meet locals and get recommendations, Madness Travel Tribe is an excellent resource. Internations, the Expat app. There's a ton of options, and you can normally let people know where you're going to be, and people will respond to your posts. So it's a good way to get local recommendations versus all the touristy stuff. But sometimes you may have to start touristy just to meet some locals, and then, you know what I mean, get some recommendations as well. Because you can ask bartenders, your waiter, Uber drivers, like, hey, recommendations of local things to do. And a lot of times they've been really open to sharing nice places to go to eat. And once you get to that location, you kind of keep asking and you find more spaces to go.
I love it. And if you do want to do some touristy things, I recommend go ahead and booking it online, but don't book it the day after you get there. So in the event, let's say your flight gets canceled, you miss your connecting flight or whatever, and you have all this stuff planned for the day after you arrive, unless it's refundable, you're going to end up missing out. So I do recommend that you book the things in advance, because a lot of times they have a long line and you can bypass all of that if you do it online. And sometimes you can save some money, but just try to avoid doing it the day after you get there, just in case, if it's not refundable.
I also would suggest, like, I don't like to plan everything on my travels. So I'll have maybe one big thing that I'm, building my travel around, whether it's a concert or, an art event. So just being aware of what your interests are and sort of building your trip that way. And then like Shar said, ask the locals, ask your Uber driver, where they have lunch on the regular, things like that.
The Uber driver is clutch. The Uber drivers that's how I know where to get the weed in some places. For real, the Uber drivers tell you, if you get a cool Uber driver, they really will tell you where everything is popping.
Okay, so Nora's asking, has anyone relocated with a dog? Does anyone here have any pets? No. Sorry, Nora, we don't have any information on that. No kids here either, so we can't give you any insight on that either. So Rochelle wanted to know a little bit more information about South Africa, Phelena.
What do you want to know?
Right. Just be a little bit more specific, Rochelle, because we just have life in South Africa. If you can be more specific, we'll go ahead and get that question answered for you. Let's see. Do you believe in solo travel? Let's see what this is. Okay, ladies, do you believe traveling solo, being a woman, is a matter of fear or safety? I hope Glenn's on, because Glenn was like, is this an all women's event? I was like, my panel are all women, but you could use this information. Men have to be safe too now. I think initially it's easy to feel that way just because, sometimes the world is not necessarily so kind to women, even where we are currently, let alone going to another country. I will say kind of get an understanding of the culture in the country you're going to understand how women are treated. I think that's important, but you can have fear and safety issues with anything you do. I don't think that you should kind of let that stop you. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like there's precautions you can take to make yourself feel safer. I know for me, one of the things that I have is a really cool little tool. It's a door stopper, but it has an alarm on it. So if someone pushes and tries to open the door, the alarm goes off. It's really loud. It's battery operated. Luckily, I've never had an issue abroad, but ironically, living alone in Atlanta, maintenance came in my house unannounced, and it went off. And so it works, but it's just one of those things where I think there's little things you can do. It only costs like $12 on Amazon. I can share the link with you so you can post it. But it's little things like that. Like if you want to feel safer, it's no different from living at home in your home country by yourself solo. So take those same precautions, right? And just your spidey senses will let you know when you're in danger. Because I have had some instances, very few, where I just felt unsafe, and just because of God, nothing bad has happened. But it's a natural fear, but it's something you have to get over, because at the end of the day, these experiences are so rich and so fun. You don't want to miss out on it your whole life because you don't have someone else to travel with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you maneuver through your regular everyday life by yourself. Granted, we're in a pandemic now, but you go to work by yourself. You get in a car and drive by yourself. You go to the grocery store by yourself. It's the same thing. And especially, like, I think if you're from a city, like especially a city, like those city sensibilities and those instincts, that shit don't leave you. You just know how to move, like, regardless.
Mm-hmm. And I think when you decide to go internationally, just consider having a cloud folder, whether it's Apple, Dropbox, or whatever, just having some of your core information in there, just in case anything had happened or any emergencies. That if you want, you can also kind of create an email address that is specifically for your travel, so that if you want your mom to log in or anyone to log in, they have the reservations for your hotels, your airplane. You can also send people your location on iPhone. You can send my location. You can send location on WhatsApp, just so you kind of people back home know, how you move, and if you want to share such advice. But, use technology to really keep in touch and make sure you're cool with any emergencies. Let's see what we have. Have any of you had any problems getting around the language where you go? I think the main place where I had a huge issue with the language was when I went to Tokyo. I really underestimated the lack. I know English isn't everywhere, but I thought because I was in the city that more people, man. And then they went full on symbols. Yeah, I struggled in Tokyo.
Yeah, I would say the same in Korea. I lived in Korea like many years ago. And like, I speak English, and then like having like lived in like Latin American speaking countries, you kind of know the Latin derived languages. So you could get around in like Brazil and Portugal and Spain, but like Korea was just like, what? The entire, what? So yeah, that was a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Deutschland was hard for me. Germany was one. I was in a small little village too. So there were maybe 5 people that spoke English, and the way that they spoke English, it was just, I had to be very patient because they spoke very slowly. It was, words that you would hear like a 4th or 5th grader using. It wasn't. My boyfriend was translating for me the entire time I was there, and I couldn't find any friends. That was even when I went to Dusseldorf, the city. It still wasn't as much. I guess I was just shocked. And I tried to learn German. I really did. I tried for a few days. It was hard.
I struggled a lot in Seoul, and I fell asleep on the bus. And it was like the last stop, and the guy, he didn't speak any English. I didn't speak the language at all. And he took my bag off the bus and was pretty much, I'm assuming he was telling me to get off. And so I'm scared because, I wake up and I'm like, damn, fell asleep. And so I ended up finding a local Wi-Fi place, like a local cafe, getting on their Wi-Fi, and then contacting a friend who lived out there. Not necessarily in the same location. They like, how the hell you end up out there? I just got too comfortable and just fell asleep. It was a long flight, and I took one of those luxury buses to into the city, but fell asleep and ended up going all the way to the end of the route. So yeah, these things happen, and that guy was not. Most people are gracious. I just want to say that, but in this particular case, yeah, he didn't care. He put me off the bus, so in my bag. Foolish to get that comfortable and fall asleep. Set an alarm for your stop, man, because I've done that multiple times, actually, just being too tired.
Can you talk about solo traveling to countries? So we kind of brushed upon this a little bit, but I think, it is a hurdle. There's no joke. I'm not knowing the language is going to be a hurdle, but it doesn't stop the experience. There's still body language. There's, Google Translate. Even though I couldn't speak the language, that has never stopped me from wanting to go anywhere. We just figure it out. I mean, if you get super lost, which even I did when I first moved here and I just got overwhelmed, I just went to a US hotel and somebody there is going to speak English if you really can't, pull it together. Like I've just had a straight breakdown and I saw Sheraton and I was like, here we go, Sheraton. And and I pulled it together, and they give you insight. So when it all fails, just go to a U.S. hotel in the country that you're in, and talk to somebody there, and they'll put you on the right track.
I also like Pimsleur. I try to do like just a crash course language class before I go anywhere, just so I'm familiar with like at least pleasantries and let somebody know they got me effed up under no uncertain terms. Like those kinds of things are important, like just before you get there. But I use Pimsleur. They have like 30-minute free lessons for like, I don't know, so many different languages. But you'd be surprised what that little 30-minute tutorial will do. It'll set you straight for your initial entree into the country.
I agree. I did Pimsleur before I came to Portugal, and I think because it's all audio, I thought it was pretty helpful. But just learn how to say basic things: please, thank you, yes, no, in that country. Just be gracious. You're not in America, so just do something about it. Do you ladies use corporate housing? I use Airbnb and hotels. I rarely stay at resorts.
Yeah, I never do resorts.
I used to live in Airbnb. That was just so clutch for me because you're still like kind of at home, because you can go cook and things like that. So I think really that's the best deal.
Yeah, I think you get more authentic experiences when you do Airbnb because you're in a neighborhood, you're in a home. A lot of times the host is going to leave a list of great eateries and things to do in the neighborhood. So I highly recommend Airbnb. I only do corporate housing, like if I'm, there for business, but otherwise I do Airbnb.
I started using a real estate agent. Yeah. I started using a local real estate agent here in Mexico for the first time. I've never done it in any other country I've been to. And I really enjoy it. I get the local prices. I'm in good areas with it's semi-local, semi-expat. They also have a lot of suggestions. They take care of everything for me, my housekeeper, and it's been a really good experience. I did try it when I was in Germany as well. And their prices were so high, so it didn't really matter if you went on Airbnb or if you went with a local agent. It was just quite expensive. But I recommend trying to find a local real estate agent.
I usually just travel using Airbnb. I rarely use hotels just because I do love to cook. So if I'm not like eating out on the regular, I'm usually like cooking myself dinner.
I love it. That's also a good way to save money, folks. Just go to the grocery store and cook in the Airbnb that you're in. So Marcus, hey Marcus, are you still in Asia? As a solo traveler, are there certain countries that you will not travel to alone? That's a really good question.
Yeah, Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a couple places.
She gave it. It's gonna be in the comments, but
that one.
I would throw Dubai in there. I think Dubai would have been fun with people, but all I ended up doing was shopping. It's some other stuff, but it wasn't. I was like, this is not fun solo. So I would not recommend Dubai solo, and I would not recommend Dakar solo either. I think, or unless you're a super, super, super experienced traveler. I think you may have a challenge here. I had a great experience, but that's as a really experienced traveler and someone in town who used to live there. So it wasn't 100% solo.
What country was that? She said, Shar?
Senegal, Dakar, Senegal.
Oh, Senegal.
For me, I don't know. I feel like being locked in from COVID for the past year, I got to get my feet wet again with solo travel. I'm a little anxious, a little bit, kind of. So I don't know. I think any country is just like they're super aggressive with women specifically. I probably won't want to go there by myself. I might try to bring somebody with me.
When you said aggressive, it made me think about Morocco. I went as a group, and they were so aggressive with our group as a whole. I couldn't imagine being there solo. So I'm going to add Morocco to the list, specifically Marrakesh. Everywhere else. Yeah, they were physically touching us, and I was like, yo, this is too much, like, to go into the market spaces. So I was like, you know what? I'm glad I'm not here solo. We were a big group with men, and they didn't care. So I would also add that to the list. Yeah.
Yeah, I traveled to Morocco. It wasn't a good experience at all. I was like, don't come to Morocco. It was a nightmare. Like, even a guy, because I had met a guy in a hostel, and he was like, can you go with me? I'm scared. I was like, I know, let's just go together. It was crazy. Like, I had guys stopping me from the day I arrived, because I got lost, trying to get to the hostel because it was like in the market. And the guy gave me incorrect directions. I got to a little boy, and I was like, oh, at least it's a little boy. He's innocent, right? He did take me to the hostel, but he did charge me. So, and then another guy there, he was like, oh, you come this way. And I knew for a fact it wasn't that way, like I knew it. And plus he didn't know me. So it's like, how do you even know where I'm going, And so he was trying to lead me down this dark alley. It was nuts though. And another place I wouldn't travel solo either is Turkey. Because, you just have to look at the way they treat women generally, which is poor. They have very high domestic violence numbers, so they don't really care about support women. Also, as a Black woman, the only Black women, mostly, the majority, I would have to say, if I had to give a number, I'm making this up, but I'm saying if I had to give a number based on my experience and the people I know there, it's like there are not any Black people, maybe 95% of the Black women who are there are prostitutes. So they'll mistake you for a prostitute. And so that can be
quite God. Can we talk about that? The amount of times I have been mistaken for a hoe, my goodness.
That happens more often than not. Yeah. You definitely got to be careful of that. Or just somebody trying to hurt you and put you, damn, I don't want to tell y'all these stories that people like, see, that's why I ain't solo travel. I'm just saying sometimes like it can be rough and you just kind of got to keep your head on the swivel and yeah.
We'll save those stories for another day.
Yeah, we'll do another one. So Phelena, your experience again, folks. If you want to know about anyone's experience in any particular country, you have to ask specific questions. Asking someone how is it or what's it like is entirely too general. So if you give me a specific question, we can direct that to our panel. Okay, let's see. How did you rent an apartment and how did you go about finding guarantors to co-sign for a lease? PJ, I'm not sure what you're talking about in regards to solo. No one is having a lease or co-signers. We just use Airbnb or booking sites. If you're speaking about Portugal specifically, I'm assuming maybe that's what you're referring to. I don't have a co-signer with the lease. That wasn't required. And you just rent the apartment like you would rent an apartment in the States. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I needed a co-signer. It had to be a local. And I had friends and I developed relationships quickly. So I just had one of them jump on for me and it wasn't a problem. But yeah, it was required.
It was the same in Brazil. I didn't have to do it because I was able to rent from a friend, but you have to have a co-signer if you live in Brazil. Apparently, you need a co-signer for an apartment.
Sometimes they'll ask for an extra month of deposit or something like that. I know that's what they did here. They asked for an extra $500, and I was like, no problem.
Yeah, and sometimes they do that in Portugal a little bit too. It just depends on the people. So NikkiFaye, you're in Kenya. I was in Nairobi. Just saying, okay, they loved it. Okay, awesome. Renee, questions. Have you noticed a price hike in Lisbon since COVID? Price hike of what, hon? Are you talking about rent, food? What are we talking about? Asking the ladies living in Lisbon. What was the question? I'm sorry. Yeah, so folks living in, she was asking for Lisbon specifically. Again, you just pay it. Sometimes you might have to pay an extra deposit, but I didn't require a guarantor in Portugal. And even last year, well, prior to COVID, they did require more deposits if you were foreign, but that was about it. All right. Any more questions for our panel? Go to the bar either. Make friends with the bartender, get free drinks. Yeah. Oh, and also be careful at the bar when people are giving you free drinks. Please.
Anywhere.
I was gonna say, the only time I've had a drug put in my drink was actually in the United States in Washington, D.C. and with the people. I wasn't even like with strangers. You just got to be careful as a man and female. I mean, just be careful about that.
I travel to 7 different countries as a solo traveler. I'd like to start a blog. What advice would you give? Should I talk about my experiences? Start with practical tips and advice. I say do all of the above. When you're creating any type of content, just make sure it's helpful. Like spend some time on Google to find out what people are searching for if you're creating content, whether it be for a blog, for a YouTube channel, whatever, and then create content, but create content that you're interested in, because creating content is a lot of work. And if you're out here just creating it, you want to like it. But yeah, I would say all of the above. Don't limit yourself on that. Okay, NikkiFaye, have you been to Rwanda, Tanzania, and would you recommend it?
I've been to both. I think it's personal choices. I've talked to people who have felt one way or the other. Tanzania was beautiful to go to Zanzibar and stuff like that. It wasn't kind of my zhuzh as far as living there. Rwanda is beautiful, clean. It's an amazing up and coming city. I would definitely live there. I haven't, but I've visited. But those two countries, a lot of people I know are moving to Tanzania. A lot of people I know are moving to Rwanda. So they're both great places.
Okay.
I think Kigali is popping. Kigali is like the Singapore of Africa right now. It's really popping.
Okay, these questions. Okay, we got a lot of questions. I'm gonna try not to hold y'all too long, but let's see. Another Brazilian. Okay, some of them are just communicating. How do you? Okay, statistically, nope. When I lived in France, I try to stay in small towns. I'll be forced to speak the language. That's where I'm at right now. Now I'm forced to learn Portuguese, which is good. Okay, so Veronica asks, I see everyone is natural or braided. Being a stylist, do you find it hard to find a salon that works with natural hair? Is it difficult? And skin products for brown skin girls?
God, yes. I flew back to the States. Look, I came here and I found one girl and like, I don't know what she did. She tried, but woo, I was like, let me go ahead and just book a ticket. And I was natural for the last 5 years. And I just said, you know what, let me just go back, sew something on, be done with it. That way I don't have to touch my hair at all. I cannot find anyone in Mexico or in this part of Mexico that I'm saying. Normally, like when I lived in Asia, I could always find a hair braider at Lease or someone that sells natural hair products in the Black community. But I'm really struggling out here. But normally you can ask around on WhatsApp groups and somebody's going to be out there for you. Just not in Playa del Carmen.
I feel like, pardon, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's always like, I feel like you can always find a Nigerian lady to braid your hair anywhere in the world. And if you can't, the place is uninhabitable. You definitely need to bring your own products. It can be a struggle though if you don't know how to do hair. I got a little bit of, beauty school dropout skills, but like when I was living in Qatar, and I was like a weave girl, like a wig girl before this. I was flying to London to get my hair done. I would get my wigs done in London or in Atlanta, a couple times a year. It's a struggle though, especially if you're gonna move abroad. I mean, if you're just traveling, just bring your supplies and your and whatever you're gonna put underneath the plane and keep it pushing.
So we have some folks that they've traveled to Nigeria alone. She says, I do not remember going alone or going at all. Okay. All right. So Nadine wants to know why not Nigeria. And again, guys, remember, these are people's personal experiences. So you can do whatever you want. But, when people had experience, you can have experience in the States, and then, but Phelena, do you want to share why you would say no to Nigeria, travel alone?
Yeah, it's not my cup of tea. I wouldn't do it by myself. It's just not my cup of tea.
Travel alone locations. What's your favorite place, folks? Mine is still Costa Rica.
Bali. Canggu.
I'm gonna say Brazil, but I think it was the time of my life. Yeah, it was a great time of my life. So I was having a ball. Yeah.
I would say London.
I love anything new. So new places are the best places for me.
I would add in, I think London, for like what Margo said, and also Belize, and I would throw in the Philippines as well.
Oh, the Philippines. I haven't done much Asia. I want to do more of that other than Tokyo. Okay, any questions? I mean, I can get attacked. Right. So she was like, Black women are getting attacked in New York, Chicago, and Atlanta too. That is true. So folks, particularly for the women, you have to be safe regardless of where you're going or where you're going to be. It's important. Okay, specific. What's the dating life? Well, we talked about that, so be sure to rewind or check it out later. But we did talk about dating international versus American. Now, we didn't talk about that.
Go international.
Ditto. I echo those.
would have to agree.
Let me tell you, I don't want to be in here like I probably haven't dated an African American man in like almost 20 years just because.
Wow.
Yeah, it's different.
It is definitely different. If someone were to ask why, what would you say? Why is it different?
For me, I felt like America's least wanted. When I left the country, I felt like abroad's most wanted. And so it's the feeling of how you're treated, the feeling of being wanted, like everybody's checking for you abroad as opposed to in the States.
Yeah, I feel like I have more options. Like I said, you feel like a kid in a candy store because you go from like, oh, here's just licorice to like, ooh, here's a whole avenue of like all the candy you want. And so I was like, oh, this is cool because it like, I mean, pretty much what Faye is saying, like it's you just have more options and you're more desired. Some of it is fetish, so you're like, no, I'm straight. But for the people, I mean, I just genuinely felt like people were interested in getting to know me, and people abroad tend to, the people that I've met, and I'm specifically talking about London, they travel. And so they've been more exposed. And I felt like I had so much time with them. It just felt organic. So yeah, I would definitely go with international. No offense to people back at home, but
it's the exposure. It's the exposure for sure.
Yeah. It is. I would say men and women. I mean, even when I meet, women, it seems to be like a higher caliber of women and men. I just feel like when you continue to meet people who step outside their comfort zone, and when you continue to meet people who continue to step outside their comfort zone, you're going to be elevated to a certain level, men and women. That's just kind of what that is, which is why it's so important for me to talk about this solo travel. Because granted, I live out the country now, but it started with travel. And when you say yes to all these things that make you nervous or scare you, you just start to elevate your life kind of naturally. It's you can't really avoid that. So dating has definitely been, I've been enjoying it more, I think, now than I did in the States. And the cool thing is because it's normal to travel, tickets to go to one part of the country or another are so much cheaper than you going state to state in the United States. So you can find a really cheap ticket. So even dating someone in another country isn't even a stretch. Okay. Which the least expensive international trips you lady have taken? I think every time I've gone to I think the DR has probably, from the States to the DR, has always been probably my cheapest international. Anybody else?
Africa's pretty cheap. Brazil was
cheap. That ticket get there.
I mean, once you get here, I mean, it's appreciably cheaper. The ticket price gonna cost the most, but Airbnbs are cheaper, food is cheaper. Brazil was cheap. I don't know. I mean, I have XE currency exchange on my phone. That's not necessarily how I determine my travel, but it's a good place to see how far your dollar is gonna go. XE currency exchange app, yeah.
Thailand was pretty cheap as well. Thailand was probably the cheapest country I think I've ever been to. I mean, you could live like a queen in Thailand, with really nice hotels and everything, and you're spending, I don't know, less than $1,000 a month.
Nice.
Yeah, my cheapest was when I was based in London. Traveling throughout Europe was super cheap from London, and one of the best deals I got was a £9.99 fare on Ryanair to go to Sweden from London, and that was round
Right.
trip. Yeah, it was. They have these really cheap fares, and it's not uncommon either. That's the equivalent of like $13.
A Spirit.
Yeah, but I'm like,
Yeah, very
but
true.
right, the ticket cheap.
Yeah.
When I went to Morocco, I flew on Ryanair, and that thing was cheap. It was probably like $120 round trip or something. It was like a decade ago, but still, that was cheap.
No, Ryan's definitely cheap. And just remember, folks, a lot of times when you see the cheap flights, they are not including luggage. So learn how to travel light, or just know that sometimes when you booking flights, and Ryan is famous for doing that. What platform to use to start a travel blog? It depends on your tech skills. If you have good tech skills, I'm always going to recommend WordPress over anything else. Okay, Guarantors, same, drugs and cigarettes. Yep, everywhere you go, food, rent. I found an apartment.
What did somebody ask a question about drugs and cigarettes?
No, they were saying same. You can find drugs and all of in Washington D.C. So I don't remember what the first part was with it, but okay. All right. Someone wants you to talk more about. I don't know how to say it correctly. Is it Kajili?
Oh, Kigali.
Kigali. Oh, that was all off.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't live there, but I have done a lot of research. I visited. They do have a residency program. Like, basically, you could go online, register a business, and like within like 6 hours, you'll have like a registered business, and then it takes like a few days, maybe a week. I don't know how long it's going to be with COVID now, but to get residency. It's a very easy place in Africa to procure residency, but it's quite safe. I think Kagame, the president, Paul Kagame, he's the most competent leader on the continent, in my opinion. So yeah, it's a safe place. It's a country I highly recommend. It's popping.
Wonderful. All right. People want to know what you all do for careers. Right. Tell the people what y'all doing.
Gosh.
Put the plug in.
I hate that question.
Most people got like 900 jobs or businesses.
I do all things through Black Jesus who strengthens me.
Blogger, real estate investor. What am I do tomorrow? I mean, when you travel, you just have the option to do whatever you want to do. Like, I learned about crypto, so I started dipping into crypto. My trade is accounting. I hate it.
You hated it?
Okay.
Oh. Did you really? Oh, wow.
NikkiFaye, tell the folks about your various business initiatives.
Yes, I'm an entrepreneur, and I run a few businesses. One is construction, and the other is apparel. I also do consulting and some other things.
She's also a great attorney. She's being modest. She looks over several contracts for me. I can be honest. I mean, I've had a variety of different career paths. Right now, I'm kind of a little bit in sabbatical mode, but I do some consulting. I've invested in some real estate overseas. I have a podcast that I've monetized. I have a radio show at home. You just find a way to monetize your skill set.
Right.
Yeah.
Margo, I feel like Margo, folks know what you do.
I am a freelance writer, and I also work as a consultant. So I do some light grant writing for a few creatives stateside. And my main gig is food, travel, and wine writing. So that's part of what I've been doing here in Lisbon.
That's cool. Do you know Shar?
I do.
Shar?
Margo's also a great cook. So.
She is an amazing cook. She's an amazing cook.
Yeah. But a cookbook coming out too, so y'all stay on the look for that.
For sure.
So I am a social entrepreneur. I've set up a community for the global Black community that lives abroad, and built an app, the first app for the Black communities called the Expat app. But Expat is spelled XPAT. That's it. The Expat app. So check it out, free for on Google and Apple Play Store.
It's a really good app too, Shar. Thank you for creating that platform.
Well, thank you. I appreciate everyone supporting it. These are the beginning stages, so we got a lot in the pipeline.
And also, so folks, I think the common thing you have, the common thread for everyone is basically entrepreneur. And so you have to kind of figure out what your skill set is and then how you can market that. And I'll end up doing some training in the next couple of weeks to help with that as well. But start to think about what you do. And with COVID, many of the things were remote anyway. People are kind of used to that. So it's the best way to do it. If you're getting new clients, just make sure they cool with not seeing your face and don't book them. Let's stay cool with that. And that's how you can transition to a remote life. All right. Let's see. Are you dating men and women? Change international experiences. Yeah, we just covered that one, hun. So check the replay as we talk about dating and dating internationally. Many Americans don't travel outside of the U.S. That is accurate, to be clear. Oh, she said, to be clear, I did not ask for the drugs. Okay, good to know. Okay, so that question is for you, Phelena. What has been your biggest challenge adjusting to life in South Africa?
Challenge. I will say that of all the African countries, South Africa is the easiest to transition to. Very much. I mean, the infrastructure is amazing. It's comparable to what you have at home. I think there's something that's called like the 5 stages of like culture shock. And right now I'm in the frustration stage, to be honest. Even though there are things that are very akin to our Western sensibilities, I miss Western standards of excellence at this particular moment. I miss good customer service. I mean, it's little things like that I miss. But truthfully, it's been a pretty easy country to transition to, easier than probably any other country I've transitioned to. And this is my 5th one, so yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and folks, everyone's contact information is in the description box of this videos, including their Instagrams as well as their website. So please feel free to reach out to people, but be gracious. If you're going to ask our esteemed guests some questions, please be specific. When you ask general questions, it's super impossible to get you an answer. What do you guys do about healthcare? When we travel, when I traveled, I just had my regular U.S. healthcare. I did not sign up for travel insurance. I probably should have, but I never did that. And now that I live out of the country, I just have the insurance here. What did you guys do? Insurance?
I use Safety Wing. The reason I chose Safety Wing is because it has a really good service, really good plan. It's available in most countries. I haven't come across a country where it wasn't available. And the price point is excellent. It's $40 a month. And so it operates like your normal employer insurance plan. And so the only issue is that you have to get reimbursed, but you have to pay and get reimbursement. But I find it's not, too much, because out of the US, healthcare is very inexpensive. So I think, paying out of pocket and getting reimbursed hasn't been a problem for me. So I love Safety Wing, the service. Like when I've needed to find a doctor and, ensuring they're in the network, it's easy to get customer service through a chat. They're available, they're open, they have a lot of options, and the reimbursement is fast.
Perfect, love it.
One thing I think people may not be aware of, sometimes your credit card has travel insurance, which will cover you for certain health conditions, something happens to you medically. And through Chase Sapphire, that's what I've used. As long as you purchase the trip on that card, it becomes covered. But it's with limitations. And then I've also used Trawick International for coming to Portugal, because it was a requirement initially to have outside insurance. When I say outside insurance, not your U.S. insurance. So yeah, I've used both.
Perfect. Is it hard to acquire a job in the healthcare abroad? None of us are in healthcare, so we can't answer that question for you. So you're gonna have to research that individually.
I have some suggestions for her though.
Sure.
I've only been entrepreneur like full time for the past 4 years of my expat journey, but I worked in Qatar for a number of years and in the Middle East, and they are always recruiting healthcare professionals, particularly Sidra Hospital, also the Cleveland Clinic in Dubai, which is, I'm sure if you're a healthcare provider, you're familiar with them, but they recruit most of their employees from North America. So I will look into those two, Sidra Hospital and also Qatar Foundation. They have Will Cornell is there. And there's some other universities that are there that might be hiring healthcare professionals. But feel free to DM me on and the links that are provided, and I could send you some more links.
That's
Julie,
really
I think her name was. No, that wasn't.
No,
Julie.
that was we lost her. Julie, giving a shout out to Julie. Julie is our friend.
Next level. Okay,
yes,
because
thanks, Julie.
Want to give a shout out to Julie. We miss you, honey. Can't wait till you come back to Portugal. Shar, can you type the website for the expat app into the comments so that people can have that? Okay, if we don't have any more questions, then I think, best bank for low. Oops, that's not what I want. Charles Schwab. That is a good bank. Don't you use them, Shar? You use Charles Schwab, right?
Yeah, because no foreign transaction fees at the ATM. And so let's say you do get charged by the ATM, like I'm here in Portugal and it charges me, it gets refunded back to me. So highly recommend Charles Schwab.
That's good.
Yeah.
SoFi does the same thing. I love it. It's a good bank account.
Okay. Which one did you say, Nikki?
SoFi. SoFi.
That's right. Yeah.
Congratulations. Okay. What are the conditions for opening a small eatery in Portugal? I don't know. I don't own a small eatery. I have no idea what those steps are. So you would have to check on that. I don't know. Okay. What do you do for health insurance back in the US? All of us live abroad, unfortunately, so we can't really answer that question for you because my insurance is based in Portugal.
My insurance covers the U.S. and a lot of other countries as well. So I have IMG Global, and it covers up to so many countries. I haven't been to a country that it hasn't covered yet. It is reimbursement, even in the States, which can suck because they're a little pricey, but at least it covers.
And what's the name of it?
IMG Global.
Okay. And NikkiFaye, who are you using?
Safety Wing also covers you in the US, but only up to 90 days. So if you're going for like 6 months and going back home, you have to seek other options.
Okay. Okay. Have you found community-based groups in your travels? Let me see. Have you found Black community-based groups in your travels? I'm not sure I understand that question.
I think she's like expat groups, which is like here we have the Black expats in Kenya and Colombia. We have I think Black expat is pretty much whatever, or either brothers and sisters in whatever country.
Okay. I don't typically look for them. So I don't know of any in Portugal. I'm sure there are ones.
Your group, Black Tribe, has how many K now? 14, 15 K? It's like you guys.
I think it's around 14.8 or so, or maybe 15 at this point. But that's also a good resource to go to Black Tribe on Facebook for people who live all over the world there. Yep.
All right, folks. I think we are done with the questions. I hope that was helpful. Want to say thank you to my esteemed panelists of wonderful guests. I always love chatting and catching up with y'all. I had the pleasure of getting to know these ladies over the past year, and it has been wonderful. So definitely want to thank you for all your energy and insight.
Thank you for having us. Thank you, Cinnamon.
Yes, thank you for organizing. This has been very helpful for me too.
So, folks, you have all the information. NikkiFaye, I'm gonna need your link for your Facebook group out there. If you can send that to me in an email, I'll go ahead. And anything that I didn't include in the box, just go ahead and email that to me, and I'll put it in the description box for the recording. Thank you so much, Sandra. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. Again, the main encouragement here, folks, is just go out there and do it. Just buy the ticket. Life has so many options, and life is super, super short. Okay, so just make the move. If you're scared, then that means all the more reason why you should do it. And transitioning this into every other aspect of your life is what's important, and definitely want you all to do that. For those of you who are wondering how you're going to get the time off and you want to make some career moves and changes, I'll try to get some training together for you in regards to that, of how to transition into a more remote and digital life. And we'll be doing that in the next coming weeks possible. And I'll get some of the ladies to give you some insight on that as well. So hope you all enjoyed yourself. Thank you all for joining me. Until next time, folks.
Thank you,
Thank you. Bye, all.
Talk to you soon.